how's it going? It's Blue. Coming at you with a quick little, I guess you could say, guide, Lahn Unawakening skill guide as to when it comes to PVE. PvP, I don't really think you want to do PvP with just Unawakening, so we'll kind of save that video. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. So let's go over her skills. Her bread and butter skills are just going to be your spacebar, L and B. This skill is just, I mean, the damage is really nice. Accuracy modifier is pretty nice. And you get your WP back, so your resource sustain is nice. And it's just decent damage, AoE, and it has like a little mini vacuum, kind of. Brings the mobs a little bit closer together. Your left L and B is going to be good because it increases your attack speed. You basically want to use this for the buff to get a maximum of 15% attack speed for 15 seconds. It's really important with Unawakening because of the fact that her animations are fairly long. So the attack speed will definitely help you. Her side R&B is also another skill you might want. It gives you a small AP buff as well, so up to like 6 AP for 10 seconds. If you have the absolute version, it gets up to 8 AP for 10 seconds. It's not a whole lot of AP, but it helps. Your R&B skill, you don't really need, like, at all. I wouldn't recommend getting it. Your R&B flow, it's a good lingering super armor for PvP purposes. Even after you get Awakening, it's still one of my favorite lingering super armors at the moment. I like to use it to bait Musas and then going into me, to bait certain classes that try to be ranged to go into me or go closer to me so I can actually grab them. So I'd still recommend always picking this up when you start to do PvP. PvE, you don't necessarily need it because you don't really need super armor in PvE. So your backdash, I mean, it's just that, it's a backdash, it's an iframe. It gives you 12% evasion. I'd recommend having it because it's also another way for movement, pack to pack, if you need to. You know, you can just move your camera around and use your backdash. Your forward R&B, I use it for movement in Unawakening. I kind of have this jerry-rigged dash because you don't actually have a dash until you get Awakening. So it's definitely worth using. Your Q skill, it's super armor, but it also gives you 200 mana or 200 WP back when you use it. It also gives you a buff for 10 seconds to where you don't lose stamina when you're running. So it's definitely worth having. Your F skills, they're not really worth having in PvP unless you just want to have more fun with your PvP experience. Your F skills aren't really worth having in PvE unless you just want to have more fun with your PvE experience, I guess you could say. The damage isn't all that great. It's not a needed skill. It's more just, hey, if you want to do more than just a couple skills in PvE, go ahead and have it. This skill here, it's like a spacebar flow, so to speak, or it's another part of your spacebar skill. It adds extra damage, and it also is a stun, and it gives you more WP back as well. I'd recommend getting it while you level up as well. Just adds more damage, gets a stun, gives you more WP back. Your shift spacebar, that's kind of your air glide. Everybody's gonna have this, so I'm not even gonna say don't get it. I wouldn't recommend leveling up the landing on them because the damage really isn't worth leveling up. Once you get fusion skills, you'll probably want to have them maxed out for certain fusion skills. So that's up to you if you want to. I don't have the level 3 version of my shift spacebar because the movement distance really isn't very different between the two. So I just leave it at this point. Unless I had extra. I don't have extra skill points at the moment to really warrant using it. Your down F skills. These, I personally enjoy using them. Just kind of gives me another thing to do while in Unawakening when I'm PvE mode. But if you don't want to, then you don't need to use them. They're not super important in PvE. But I still recommend getting them if you just want to have more fun. And don't get too tired out doing the same like 2 skills over and over. Awful Brawler, thank you for the sub. I appreciate that. That 2-month sub, easy, man. Thank you. Welcome to the No Pants Zone, and may all your No Pant enchanting be forever in your favor. Alright, so your forward F skill, it's also part of your jerry-rig dash. When it's off cooldown, it goes a lot further. I'll explain the dashing later. Well, let's just continue with the skills. This is your shift LMB. I thought originally that it might do good damage because it has down attack. It wasn't the case, so as soon as I tried it and I realized there was no damage, I got rid of it and never unlocked it since. Your down LMB, alone it's not that great, but I like to use it with your down F LMB, because if you use down F and you hold LMB, it'll go into this skill, which is the flow, and then it'll do your down LMB, the second part of it. As you look at the video, it gets launched in the air. It'll do that part, and if you continue to hold LMB while you're in the air, you'll actually land with your shift space LMB flow. So it's a fun little extra little combo you can do. It does have floating and air attack. It's not super high damaging once you get your awakening, so it's fun to have, but it's not necessarily important. Your shift F skill, I personally just don't like it. It's not worth having in PVE. The damage really isn't too great. It's really not worth having. Now your LMB RMB is another really good damaging skill I would recommend. It's got frontal guard, and it's easy damage when you don't have stamina from your spacebar. And yeah, this skill you can potentially have at your down LMB RMB if you're fighting mobs that might hurt or have certain skills that might hurt, or if you're fighting mobs that like to CC you. You can use this skill. It's a forward guard while you're charging it, and then once you let go and you're actually doing the skill, it's a super armor. So it's a decent skill to have. Your forward RMB, if you're trying to PvP in Unawakening, I would recommend having it. If not, I just don't even bother using it. Your passives, obviously you're gonna want, it's 0.25% per level of move speed and attack speed. So the maximum amount you'll have is 2.5% bonus move speed and 2.5% bonus attack speed. I promise you, you would hope that it's actually good, but unfortunately her Unawakening animations are so slow that it's still not really like amazing. So let's go ahead and go into it. So we'll talk about her Unawakening dash now. Again, it's going... So we'll talk about her Unawakening dash now. It's really straightforward. It's your forward F, forward LMB, forward RMB. As soon as you land with forward F, you use your forward LMB and then cancel it with forward RMB. So pretty like this. Again, once your forward F is on cooldown, you don't go as far. So then you just do your forward LMB RMB. As soon as you see your pendulum blade move from your forward LMB, you cancel it into your RMB, like so. So for your damaging skills when you're in Unawakening for grinding, it's very, very simple, straightforward. I'll let these mobs reset and I'll show you. Use forward F to get to the mobs. Spacebar LMB. Again, you go forward F, forward LMB for your jerry-rig dash, spacebar LMB. You can also use LMB RMB if there's a couple mobs in front of you that you want to quickly get to. But for the most part, spacebar LMB. So you're gonna keep going, spacebar LMB, go up the stairs, and that's basically PVE for her, an Unawakening. You can also use your Unawakened Shift Q for some extra damage, and just if you want to do something a little different. If you have mobs that are kind of grouped together but not completely, you can use your down F LMB, like I like to do. It just kind of adds a little variety to it. Decent damage, but again, it's not really important. And then use your shift space if you want to go further with your air glide, and then forward F, and then spacebar L and B. I would recommend locking your 100% and then just absorbing it for 30 AP and 30% crit, because her unawakening 100% is really bad. And that's her PVE for her pre-awakening. Her Q buff and pre-awakening you can also use to taunt mobs. So from here, you can use this and it'll act as a taunt as well. If you want to quickly use her side LMB and side RMB for the buffs, you can actually combine them together or flow them together with side LMB into side RMB, or side RMB, side LMB into spacebar LMB. If mobs are, you know, a little further ahead of you and you don't want to use your forward F, you can just use your LMB RMB to get to them while killing them. And this is basically Lahn's Unawakening, or the fastest way to kill the mobs in Unawakening, I should say. Again, you can use other skills if you want to, but it just won't do as much damage. Not really worth doing unless you just want to have fun. So to recap, her more important skills for Unawakening damage is spacebar LMB, her shift Q, and her LMB plus RMB together. Those are the three main damaging skills. You want to use her side LMB, keep the buff up, it has an attack speed buff, and her side RMB has an AP buff if you want to have it. All other skills in Unawakening in terms of damage just really isn't too great. For her dash, it's going to be her forward F, forward LMB, and then for her forward RMB for your jerry rig dash. Her Q buff allows you to run without wasting stamina, and it also will taunt mobs within the general vicinity of her. And that's her